You have been pretending to be someone else your entire life and calling it survival. Every smile you faked to keep the peace. Every opinion you swallowed to fit in. Every dream you abandoned because someone said it was unrealistic. You built a version of yourself that the world could tolerate. But that version is not you. And somewhere deep inside you know it. Niccolò Machiavelli watched men die without ever becoming who they actually were. He saw princes wear masks so long they forgot their own faces. Tonight you learn why becoming your true self is the most painful thing you will ever do. But here is what nobody tells you. The pain of transformation is temporary. The pain of living as someone else is permanent. And one of those pains destroys you slowly while the other rebuilds you completely. The official story says that personal growth is empowering and liberating. That finding yourself is a beautiful journey of self-discovery. But one detail does not make sense. If becoming yourself is so beautiful, why does everyone who actually does it describe years of agony? Why do they talk about losing friends, breaking relationships, facing judgment, and walking through periods where they did not recognize their own reflection? The truth is darker than the self-help industry wants you to know. Becoming your true self requires killing the person you pretended to be, and that person does not die quietly. Here is the first pain nobody warns you about. The moment you decide to stop pretending, you realize how much of your life was built on the pretense. Your friendships, your career, your daily routines, your relationships. All of it was constructed around the fake version of you. The version that said yes when you meant no. The version that laughed at jokes you found offensive. The version that pursued goals that belonged to someone else's definition of success. When you start dismantling that false self, everything attached to it starts falling apart. And it feels like your entire life is collapsing. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote that a prince who wants to transform his state must be prepared to make enemies of everyone who benefited from the old order. Your false self created an entire ecosystem of people who like that version of you. When you change, they resist. Not because they hate growth, but because your growth disrupts their comfort. The friend who always relied on you to agree with them suddenly faces disagreement. The family member who expected you to follow their plan suddenly faces your own direction. The partner who was attracted to your compliance suddenly faces your boundaries. They did not sign up for the real you. They signed up for the performance. And when the performance ends, so does their interest. This is where it gets brutal. You will lose people you thought were permanent. Friends who claim to support you will disappear when you stop being useful to them. Family members who said they wanted you to be happy will punish you for choosing happiness they do not understand. Partners who said they loved you will leave when they realize they loved the version of you that prioritized their needs over your own. And each loss will feel like proof that you made a mistake. That the real you is not lovable. That the mask was necessary after all. But here is what Machiavelli knew. The people who leave when you become yourself were never yours to begin with. They belong to your performance. And letting them go is not loss. It is liberation disguised as loss. But there was one piece of evidence the self-help gurus never explain. Not in their books, not in their seminars. The evidence that shows transformation is not a straight line upward. It is a descent into chaos before the reconstruction begins. We will come back to it. But first you need to understand the second pain. The pain of facing who you actually are versus who you thought you were. You have been running from yourself for so long that you genuinely do not know what is real anymore. Is that career ambition actually yours, or did you absorb it from your parents? Is that relationship preference authentic, or is it what you learned from movies? Are those values genuinely held, or are they adopted to fit in with a certain group? When you start asking these questions, the answers are terrifying, because you might discover that 90% of what you call your personality is borrowed, performed, or constructed to avoid rejection. The real you might be completely different from the person you have been showing the world. And meeting that stranger in the mirror is destabilizing. 3 people in your life right now think they know you completely. Your best friend, your partner, your family member. But none of them have met your true self. They know the edited version, the one you show them. the one that fits their expectations. The cameras were working the whole time. You performed perfectly. But the real you never left the building. And now you have to introduce everyone to someone they have never met. Some will be confused, some will be angry. Some will accuse you of changing. They are right. You are changing. You are becoming real, and real is always messier than performance. Machiavelli wrote about this in ways that made the church furious. He said that virtue, the way society defines it, is often the enemy of authenticity. Society rewards certain behaviors: compliance, agreeableness, self-sacrifice, humility, and it punishes others: assertion, boundary setting, self-prioritization, confidence. So people learn to perform the rewarded behaviors and suppress the authentic ones. They become virtuously fake, authentically imprisoned. The pain of breaking free is the pain of disappointing everyone who benefited from your imprisonment. His mother kept his bedroom exactly as he left it for 31 years, because everyone told her he would come back and be the son she remembered, the obedient one, the predictable one, the one who fit into the family story. But he never came back, because the person who left was not coming back. He died during the transformation. The person who returned was someone new, someone real, and she never forgave him for it. They were wrong to expect his return, because becoming yourself means some people will mourn the death of who you used to be. And you have to let them grieve without going back to comfort them with the ghost they prefer. Authorities called it selfish when someone chooses their own path over their family's expectations. But selfishness doesn't explain why it takes 10 years of therapy to undo conditioning that happened in childhood. This one did. The official story is that you are choosing yourself over others. The real story is that you are choosing reality over performance. And performance is exhausting. Performance is expensive. Performance is a slow death that everyone applauds because it keeps them comfortable. Here is the third pain, and this is the one that breaks most people: the loneliness. When you shed the false self, there is a period where you exist in between identities. You are no longer the person you pretended to be, but you are not yet comfortable being the person you actually are. You are rebuilding, and during the rebuilding, you are alone. The old friends are gone. The new ones have not arrived yet. The old routines do not fit. The new ones are not established yet. You are in the void, and the void is silent and dark and makes you question everything. Machiavelli called this the dangerous time. The time when a prince is most vulnerable is not during the battle. It is during the transition, when the old order is destroyed but the new order is not yet secure. Most people turn back during this phase. They cannot tolerate the loneliness. They cannot handle the uncertainty. They go back to the performance because at least the performance had an audience. At least the mask had friends. But here is what they do not realize. The loneliness of transition is temporary. The loneliness of living as someone else is permanent. You can be surrounded by people and feel completely alone if none of them know the real you. That is the loneliest existence possible. That fingerprint should have closed the case on who you are. You did the therapy, you read the books, you made the changes. Instead, it opened a second crime scene. Because becoming yourself is not one transformation. It is layers. You peel back one mask and find another underneath. You think you have reached authenticity and discover another layer of conditioning. The work never fully ends. But here is the difference. Each layer gets easier. Each mask comes off faster. Each version of false self has less grip on you. You are not starting over. You are going deeper. The fourth pain is the judgment. The moment you stop performing, people notice. And they have opinions, strong ones. Your family says you have changed, and not in a good way. Your old friends say you are not the person they knew. Colleagues say, you are difficult now. What they mean is you are no longer convenient. You used to absorb their problems. Now you have boundaries. You used to agree with everything. Now you have your own opinions. You used to prioritize their comfort. Now you prioritize your truth. And they are calling that change selfishness. They are calling boundary setting cruelty. They are calling authenticity arrogance. Machiavelli said it clearly. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. What he meant was this. It is better to be respected for who you actually are than loved for who you are pretending to be. Because love based on performance disappears the moment the performance stops. But respect based on authenticity compounds over time. The people who respect your boundaries stay. The people who love your performance leave. And you want them to leave. You need them to leave. Because they are occupying space that belongs to people who will love the real you. For years, the case of your identity went cold. You stopped asking who you really were. You accepted the performance as permanent. You convinced yourself it was fine. Then something happened. A breakdown. A crisis. A moment of clarity. A box was found in storage. Everything changed. The box contained all the dreams you abandoned, all the truths you swallowed, all the versions of yourself you killed to keep the peace. And you realized you could not keep pretending. Not anymore. The cost was too high. So you started the painful work of becoming real. Here is the fifth pain. The guilt. You will feel guilty for disappointing people who never had your best interest at heart. You will feel guilty for setting boundaries with people who violated yours for years. You will feel guilty for choosing yourself after decades of choosing everyone else. This guilt is not rational. It is conditioning. You were taught that your needs are less important than others' comfort. You were taught that self-sacrifice is noble and self-care is selfish. You were taught to feel guilty for existing as anything other than a support system for other people's lives. Breaking that conditioning requires feeling the guilt and moving forward anyway. Machiavelli's advice to princes applied here perfectly. Do what must be done quickly and completely. Do not drag out the transformation. Do not half commit to authenticity. Rip the mask off completely and deal with the consequences all at once. Because dragging it out prolongs the pain and creates confusion. People cannot adjust to a moving target. Give them the full truth. Let them respond. Then move forward. Some will adjust, most will not, and that is information you need quickly, so you can rebuild with clarity. The sixth pain is the uncertainty. When you live as someone else, at least you know the script. You know what to say, how to act, what to do. The performance is predictable, but when you step into authenticity, there is no script. You are improvising, you are discovering, you are making mistakes. And mistakes feel terrifying when you spent your whole life trying to be perfect. But here is the secret. Mistakes made while being authentic are more valuable than perfection achieved through performance. Because authentic mistakes teach you who you actually are. Perfect performance teaches you nothing except how to keep pretending. The seventh pain is the grief. You grieve the years you lost, the decades spent performing, the relationships built on lies, the opportunities you declined because they did not fit the false version of you. You grieve the person you could have been if you had started earlier. This grief is heavy, and it is necessary. You have to mourn what was lost before you can fully inhabit what is being built. Let yourself grieve, but do not let grief become an excuse to stop transforming. The years lost are gone, the years ahead are still available, and living them authentically is how you honor the time you wasted. But here's the evidence that changes everything. The evidence the self-help industry never mentions. Every single person who completes this transformation describes the same thing. A moment where the pain stops, where the loneliness lifts, where the person in the mirror finally looks familiar, where the life they are living finally feels like it belongs to them. That moment does not come quickly. For most people, it takes years, but it comes. And when it comes, it justifies every loss, every judgment, every painful step through the void. Machiavelli wrote that a prince who successfully transforms his state becomes legendary, not because the transformation was easy, but because it was necessary and he did it anyway. You are transforming your state, the state of your identity, the state of your life, the state of your relationships, and it is brutal. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is living your entire life as a performance that gets applauded by people who never knew. You dying as a stranger to yourself. That is the real tragedy. The case of your identity will eventually be closed, not because someone else solved it for you, but because you did the work. You faced the pain. You lost the people who needed you fake. You found the people who want you real. You grieved the past. You built the future. You became yourself. And here is the final truth that makes all the pain worth it. The person you become is worth every person you had to disappoint to get there. The life you build is worth every comfortable lie you had to abandon. The peace you feel is worth every judgment you had to endure. You are in pain right now because you are becoming real. That pain is not proof you are failing. It is proof you are finally doing what you should have done years ago. Keep going. The person waiting on the other side of this transformation is someone you will finally recognize. Someone you will finally respect. Someone you will finally be proud to call yourself. And that person is worth fighting for.